My name is Inga-Lill Sundset. I'm working as an advisor in the county of Nordland. But I'm also a member of the Sami minority. So this time, it was very good that we had Alexei first, because he was speaking about the emotions. And what I will be speaking about is to use cultural arenas just to increase the positive emotions around the language, because we need that to feel pride and to increase the use of it. A lot of you know Nordland, but some of you don't, so I'll just have a short introduction about Nordland County. It is a small county, but huge in area in northern Norway. It has 235,000 inhabitants, with Bodø as the biggest town. And it's written 43,000, but it's actually 50,000 inhabitants this year. And the smallest municipality is Træna, with only around 500 inhabitants. The population is growing just a little bit, but mostly due to labor immigration. But it is a multicultural region with 4 languages. But we can't compare it with Vojvodina. It is the majority of the inhabitants in Nordland speaks Norwegian. And then you have around 1,000 people speaking or having the knowledge of the Sami language. It's a very small minority, but if we compare with the municipalities in Nordland, it wouldn't be the smallest municipality if we gathered everyone in the same municipality. Then we have the international perspective of linguistic diversity. The value of linguistic diversity is recognized internationally. It is the most powerful cultural expression that a person may have. It is a tool of ideas, emotions, as we heard about, knowledge and memories and values. The key role of language in the expression and transmission of cultural heritage is also recognized in the 2003 UN Convention for Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage. Language is not just words. It is also an expression of who you are and where you belong. The language tells a story. If you're in Sweden, Norway, or here in Vojvodina, it tells everything about what kind of people lives in this region. Where do they come from? Have they always been here? Have they been moving through? Or with how has the interaction between the different people have been through the ages? Like the Sami people, as I used as an example in this speech, the Sami language tells us a story of 6,000 years. It belongs to the Finno-Ugric language. And if we study the language, we can see that the first contact of importance with Norwegian, Swedish-speaking people occurred around 1,000 years ago. A language carries the past with it, and it also have a lot of information about how the people lived and how the society was built. if we compared the Sami language with other languages within the Ural languages group, as for example the Samoyeds in Western Siberia, it tells a bit about how the Sami people lived in the ancient times: reindeer herders, nomads. And what researchers has done to get to know this is that they reconstruct the old grammar and compare it with the grammar of the other languages. And this is very important where we have no written material. And a lot of people in the Arctic and also in the Ural and the Western Siberia has no written material before the 20th century. The words of the Sami goes back 6,000 years. This gives us a proof that there has been contact between people in the Ural Mountains and Western Siberia up to like for 16,000 years ago, and then it stopped. It tells us that the Sami people then moved from the traditional areas. And it also tells us that the contact with the other Finno-Ugric people, like the Hungarians, stopped around 5,000 years ago. When we look at words like bena, which means dogs, and gama, shoe, and magic, the beaver. But I want you to have a chance to listen to the language. It's a small language. Very few people speak it, and very few of you will have the chance of listening to it. And I heard about the mosquitoes here. I chose this YouTube clip before I came here, thinking about the northern Scandinavia and our mosquitoes, but listening to the participants of AR, it's also important for Serbia. So now you will have a small YouTube clip from our Sami theater showing how the mosquitoes came into the world. This is a theater performance for kindergartens, and the main purpose of having these kinds of performances is that it uses theater as a way of communication for all the kindergarten children in Nordland, if you're Sami speaking or not. Because when you have the possibility to listen to a language, it becomes more known and not so strange, and it increases the awareness of being in a multilinguistic county. The first Sami book was printed in 1619, and it was an ABC by a Sami priest in Piteå in Sweden. And then during the 19th century, a Sami orthography was developed by a Norwegian professor. And the first dictionary came in 1866. But not before 1975, the law was changed and the school children had the possibility to learn the Sami language in school. And then in 1989, we had the Sami parliament in Norway that helps to promote the use of the language. But a language needs to evolve to be alive. The language, to be a living language, has to change together with the culture, because otherwise it will end up like Latin. In 2006, Tysfjord, a municipality in northern part of Nordland, becomes the first official bilingual municipality in Nordland. Then for the first time, you can choose whether to use Norwegian or Sami in contact with the public offices. Then you have schools and kindergarten using Sami as a first language, and everyone has the right to learn it as a second language. But to promote it also, the county gives students a scholarship for taking courses in Sami. That's very effective. I don't know who of you youth would say no to some extra money during your student time. And then you have increasingly public street and road signs in Sami and Norwegian. The road sign to Bodø is written in Sami and Norwegian. That was not easy, but that's another story. And we have an increase in Sami-speaking children, and it's possible to take a bachelor or master in Sami at the university. And we have television and radio having programs in Sami every day. But then, when you, as in Nordland, you start to increase the use of Sami, it is very often that it becomes a school language. Because we don't have a big other country with a lot of written literature where you can go on holiday and to increase the language. The school becomes the major arena for speaking the Sami. And it's also due to urbanization. In Norway, Sweden, and in all the other countries of Europe, people prefer to move into the cities where you have the opportunities of going to university or to have an interesting job. And therefore you have to create new arenas for using the language if you want it to evolve and survive. And then we have also to see that despite the urban Sami a largely favorable view of language, they use the language much less than the elders. It's very often only used at schools. Therefore, we have to create more arenas where you can use it and hear it, to speak it, to evolve it. Because when you give status to a language and more than protect it, it actually develops the language. It gives Sami speakers a certain confidence in expecting quality services in their own language. Because if you are speaking a language that nobody responds to, and where you can't use it anywhere, you stop using it. And as the previous speaker told about, if you don't have a status and confidence in your identity, you stop using your language. And therefore now, it is possible, if you have contact with the county council, to use the Sami language. It's not very often done, but it is possible. The county council has a Sami language advisor who is working with creating more arenas for using the Sami language. And we have a Sami theater, as you have seen, that are performing in the whole country, in the whole of Norway. And we also have had a lot of performances in schools and kindergartens. And this year they are doing several performances in Sweden too, since Umeå is the cultural capital of the European cultural capital this year. And we have 4 Sami cultural centers from north to south. And their main goal is to do projects, study language, do research projects, to promote the language. And it's also possible from the county to apply to language projects. And we have our own office branch from the Norwegian Broadcasting making programs in Sami. And we also have library buses going around in the whole county where people can borrow books at the place they live. And what do a typical Sami cultural center do? The biggest Sami cultural center was started in the beginning of the 1990s, and today it has already around 40 people working there. So it has done a major impact for the Sami language, but also a major impact for the small municipality where it is, creating jobs. And this is examples of their project at this year. They have language projects. They have a project about the border guards during the Second World War. And they had a project before the national borders in Scandinavia. The borders between Norway and Sweden was finally established in 1905 when Norway got its independence. And then in my family, everyone had to choose whether to be a Norwegian or a Swede. And 50% chose to become Norwegian, and 50% decided to become Swedish. But when my great-grandfather died, he was living in Norway. We discovered that he had never asked for a Norwegian citizenship, and he had not either asked for the change of his name. So it's possible. And they also have a project about improving health projects, taking care of historical sites and resources from the nature, and pupils' projects. And also using the theater, it is important to use the minority languages on stage. It gives also a way of experimenting with new kinds of cultural expressions, because it has to change. Why can't a Sami be an important ballerina? It doesn't always have to be about the traditional ways of expressing your culture. And it also has an important role in emphasizing the Sami part of the common history of Nordland. Because we have the proofs, it has been a quite good contact for the last 1,000 years between the Norwegian and the Sami population. It has not been segregated. It has become a part of the Norwegian history together. And like, for instance, we have Elsa Laula Renberg, which is one of the major citizen rights movements participants in the beginning of the 20th century. She was fighting for female rights, she was fighting for Sami rights, and the right to vote for everyone in the beginning of the 20th century. So it all goes together, and that's very important when you are emphasizing the role of the minorities, is to emphasize also the common background. And to achieve this, the Nordland County is having cooperation agreements with the Sami Parliament, of course, but also with the other counties in northern Norway. Because it's a small population, and when you do things together, you will more certainly have better results. And in our strategy plan in the county of Nordland, you have Sami as one of the four main perspectives, which is going to be integrating in all the major actions taken. And we see that it is positive to include the perspective of multilingualism. We see that we have had a development of cultural educational tourism. We had increasing entrepreneurial skills. A lot of the businesses started in the last 10 years has been of young Sami people. Health services and also new technology used. And all with results that the Sami youth feel more pride in their home community and more chances of moving home after studies. Because in the county of Nordland, we want more people to come back home, like in a lot of other regions in Europe. And we see that the greater pride they prove in their background, the greater chances of moving back home. And we see the same thing in Scotland and in Ireland, that bilingual youth has more work opportunities. If you speak, and also if you already speak 2 languages, it is also very much easier to learn a 3rd or a 4th language. Because being trilingual, that's the new European trend. Your native language tells you who you are, where you come from. The second language, in this case, with whom you live. And the 3rd language is a passport to go where you want, like English. Multilingual people use a bigger part of their brain, that's proven, and are more innovative and more open-minded, as we want the future European youth to be. So I have borrowed a say from language school. It is, get smarter today, start learning a language.